going on, Dolph fans? It is your boy Dillon, and today I wanted to make a video because, I was sitting around thinking, obviously, we lost to KC and it was super disappointing and all of that stuff, but I was sitting here thinking around, and look, I even said in my video kind of recapping the game from yesterday that, look, just because we lost to the Chiefs doesn't mean that our season is over. And so, I was thinking about it today, and I decided that what I wanted to do is I actually wanted to kind of take a look at the remaining season, not just for the Dolphins, but also for some of these other teams that we're going to be battling against, to see, kind of how things can and will potentially play out and how the Dolphins can still, win the AFC East, potentially even get the number one seed and still accomplish what we want to accomplish over the course of the season, which of course is ultimately getting to and winning the Super Bowl, which I absolutely still do think that this team is capable of doing. Now, let's just acknowledge that it is a fact. If you just look at the record of the teams that we've beaten versus the teams that we haven't, it is unfortunately true that we just cannot deny that the Dolphins have yet to beat a team with a winning record. Now, you could make the argument that, in the beginning of the season, we beat the Chargers, who typically are a good team, even though they're not a good team now, at this point through the season and are having tons of issues. They were a playoff team last year. So were the Giants, as a matter of fact. So you could look at it from that perspective, but of course, nobody cares what happens last year, at least in that regard. I mean, when people defend the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, granted they've earned it, but they like to, reach into the past for that sort of stuff. Whatever. None of that is here nor there. I just was saying, look, the narrative is going to be the narrative, and unfortunately, until the Dolphins buck that by beating a good team, it's going to stay that way. They will have options, though, down the season. Down the line in the back end of the season. Unfortunately, it's not looking like that's really going to be the case for the next 5 games because of who we play. We play the Raiders, the Commanders, the Jets twice, and the Tennessee Titans. I don't know. I'm not sure what Washington is right now. But anyway, whatever. I think they all currently have losing records. Either way, none of them are particularly good teams, and the Dolphins should be favored in all of those games. So, we likely won't have the opportunity to beat a good team, a playoff team, a winning team until the end of the season when we come up against Dallas at home. So the narrative is the narrative, and it's just going to be that way. Look, don't worry about it. Let's forget about that, okay? I do think that we would have beat the Eagles had we not had to fight the refs as well. Injuries were a part of it. We were on the road. That's a part of it. Good team. That's a part of it. All that's a part of it. But as you know, I think in that game in particular, that game was decided by the officiating, and I hate when games are decided by officiating. And it's not just Dolphins games. And to be clear, that's the only game for the Dolphins this season that I think that applies to. But it does happen way too much in the NFL, and that absolutely needs to get fixed. Against the Chiefs, there were a number of things that went wrong. It was not officiating that ultimately decided the game. You could look at it from the perspective of the fumble that Tyreek had that led to the touchdown could have been the deciding factor, right? Or you could look at the end of the game, the fumble, and that last series. You could look at that as the deciding factor, and deciding to not run the ball after Mostert just had 2 big runs, deciding to throw it. You could look at that as potentially what decided the game. There are a number of things that you can look at for this past one. Refereeing and officiating was not one, right? But again, though, we could have beat the Chiefs. I absolutely think going into that game, I thought we could have beat them. And, after what happened, I still think we absolutely could have won that game. Okay. But it is what it is. So let's just acknowledge it. You have to acknowledge it. Let's not live in a false reality. But let's also not dwell on it. And let's not use that as, the main focal point. Let's not let the national narratives seep into our own thought, because the reality is this team is still very, very good. The defense is really starting to come on, and I think in the second half of the season, you're going to see that they will end up as, at the end of the season, when it's all said and done, I am confident that this Dolphins defense will be in the top 10, along with the offense. I think the offense will remain that, and I think that they do have some, weaker opponents coming up on the schedule that they can take advantage of on both sides of the ball to boost their overall numbers. But I do think that the defense is really coming on under Vic Fangio, and with all the pieces being back. We do still expect to get Devon Achane and hopefully, and what I expect, Robert Hunt to be back. Maybe it's not for the first game after the bye against the Raiders. Maybe he needs another week, but I do expect him to come back at some point. They haven't put him on IR, right? So I think they expect him to be back at some point. It doesn't seem like his hamstring, from all the reports that were out and stuff, it doesn't appear as though his hamstring is all that serious. So it looks like he will be back. So we will still be getting a couple more reinforcements. We won't have to see any more Ahmed, hopefully, because between Mostert, Wilson, and Achane, hopefully there just won't be any. I'm sorry to Ahmed. I'm sure he's a nice dude, but he just doesn't, especially in the regular season. He's had flashes in the preseason before, but in the regular season, he just doesn't get it done. And I think, there are a number of examples where Achane would have broke tackles and gained extra yardage where he doesn't. So, but anyway, that's neither here nor there for right now. I'm just trying to say that there are reasons absolutely for hope and optimism still going forward. Now let's get into what the actual content of this video is supposed to be, though. Because what I did and as you will see here, we are at the midway point of the season. Obviously, we're going into week 9 will conclude tonight with the Chargers and Jets who play. And obviously, I'll be watching that game and stuff like that to see how it plays out. I'm rooting for the Chargers, obviously because of division, but I'm not super worried about the Jets overall. I know you can see here, I've already gone through the games for the rest of the season, and you can see the Dolphins are at 14-3. That is obviously with me picking us to win out the rest of the season, which I do absolutely think is possible. Now, we could also lose some games, but I do think, well, let's just get to it, because we are at the midway point of the season, so it is that time to really start delving in, and I think for the rest of the season, hopefully I'll be able to do it. I mean, my life circumstances aside, provided my life circumstances will provide me the opportunity to continue making videos, I will plan to do this at least once a week and update it with the actual results of the week, because obviously, I'm just kind of guessing, right? So I went through, and I have it right now on week 9, because like I said, week 9 hasn't concluded yet. So this game is still yet to be played, but I'm going to take the Chargers over the Jets. Okay, so now what I did though is I went through every single week, and I'm going to go through that. I'm going to pull these games up. I'm going to pull it. So this is week 9. Let's assume the Chargers end up winning, and then we go on. Okay, so as you can see though, the way that I picked all of these games, I mean, it's a little bit of a spoiler, but we're going to go through it. Obviously, you see that I have the Dolphins right now at 14-3. I definitely think it's possible. It's not, I didn't just put 14-3 because I'm a Dolphins fan and, I want us to win every game down the stretch and all that stuff. It's also because I think it's possible. Now, I will give you a little bit of nuance when I actually talk about these games. And then, of course, I'll end up probably doing like preview games and preview videos and recap videos and stuff like that for all of these games as well over the course of the season. But let's go ahead and look at it. So obviously, like I said, I have chosen the Chargers over the Jets in this game. And then the rest of the games, though, have actually been played. So for the rest of the week 9 picks, these are the actual results. As you can see, there's actually scores for them. This game is not scored because it hasn't been played yet. All right, let's go on to week 10. Shit, I keep doing that. I keep going to do it on my main monitor, but the web browser is on my secondary monitor. So the scroll bar I need to use is on the secondary monitor. I keep going to try and use it on my primary monitor because I see this on my primary monitor. Anyway, I digress. Let's go to next. So week 10. Okay, like I said, I already did make the picks for all of these games. So let's just go ahead and see. Now we are going to pay a little bit closer attention, obviously, to the teams that I think we're going to be competing for the number 1 seed. Now, in my situation, my scenario, we do have the Dolphins as the number 1 seed, winning 14 games. Now, we can change some things up and see if that changes and, what would happen, right? So a little bit, and we'll do that, each and every week a little bit too. But let's go ahead and look at this. So I chose the Ravens over the Browns. I think that's a pretty safe bet. I mean, the Browns do have that defense. Deshaun Watson is coming back, so we'll see what that offense is like. But I would take the Ravens over the Browns. I think Bengals over Texans, clear. These are two teams that we will be, as you can see, I mean, in this projection, the Bengals are at 14-3 and the Ravens are at 11-6 after it's all said and done. But these are definitely teams that I think that we could be battling for the number 1 position for, so that they will be important to watch. Patriots and whatever, who cares? The Patriots ain't going to catch us, but I chose the Colts over them. Jets, Raiders are in a mess right now. I could see the Jets winning this game, but I chose them over the Jets. Look, and part of this, I'll admit, part of this was if I couldn't decide, if it was a game like this where I couldn't decide, in this particular context, I chose the Raiders over the Jets because I want the Jets to lose. I could see it going either way, just to be fair. Bills, I think, will and should beat the Broncos. But it is Broncos, it looks like. No, Broncos are, oh yeah, it's a home game for the Bills. Broncos are coming in. Broncos are coming in off their bye. And they did beat the Chiefs. So, surprise, surprise, maybe. I doubt it. I think the Bills are win. You see, in my calculations, after choosing all these games, they ended up 10-7 as the 7th seed. This one's tough. I mean, I could see this one going either way. Niners versus Jags. The only reason why this is any bit important to us is because maybe the Jags could be a potential threat. I had them, let's see, what did I have them? You can see here, 13-4 is the final, with them being the 4th seed. I could see that going either way, but in this case, I chose NFC over AFC just because that's, admittedly, those are our picks slightly with bias. Admitted, right? Because in this case, it's a division rival and I want them to lose. In this case, I choose the NFC team over the AFC team, which obviously gives us an edge because, who knows how it would maybe play out if, like, let's say the Jags ended up 14-3. Now, here's the thing. At this point in the season, there are too many potential ways that it could play out. So I'm not going to go through each and every week changing things up. How does this change it? How does that change it? But that's why I think what I'll do instead is I'll talk a little bit about it now, but then next week and the week after and the week after that, as actual results go in, I'll talk about, certain games and certain things a little bit more in detail, as we get down the line, because we'll know, right? Like right now, it's just a lot of guessing. You know what I'm saying? Because frankly, there is still some chance that the Jets could win a bunch of games and then end up battling us for the division. There is some chance of that happening. But the thing is there's way too many scenarios that could play out. I could do a video that's like 10 hours and still not get to all of the different ways that it could shake out. So it's just too much to go into right now. Let's see. I chose the Bucks over the Titans, the Packers over the Steelers. Again, these are, like, I could see these games going either way, these two. So I just chose the NFC team over the AFC team, right? I do think the Lions will beat the Chargers, though. Because I just don't think the Chargers are actually a good team. So I actually chose, in that, I was leaning Detroit, so I took Detroit. As you can see, though, with my picks, not only is Detroit ending up as the number 1 seed in the NFC, but they're 15-2, which is pretty crazy. I don't think they're going to end up 15-2 ultimately, but again, that's why we're going to have to wait and do this, week after week. I chose the Bears over the Panthers, the Saints over the Vikings, the Falcons over the, God damn it, I keep doing that. Over the Cardinals. Whatever. I mean, these games could all go, either way. I mean, again, you could say that about any game too, any given Sunday. I do think the Cowboys will beat the Giants, and I do think the Seahawks will beat the Commanders. I'm more confident in those games, less confident in these. Okay, great. Let's move on to the next week. God damn it, I keep doing that. Okay, next week 11, right? Because I don't want to take too much time, sitting in any one week, because there's still lots of weeks, lots of games to play, but I do want to go through this and look at it, because I do absolutely think, and the overall broader point is I want people to understand that it is still very, very possible for us to win the division, get the number 1 seed, and make it to the fucking Super Bowl. But I want you guys to see how the path could potentially lay out. So I wanted to make it as realistic as I possibly could under the current circumstances. All right, week 11. Now, this is a tough matchup between the Bengals and the Ravens. Ultimately, I chose Bengals here. Ravens at home, so you could take them. They're both really good teams. It's tough. This one's super tough. And I think I leaned towards the Bengals ultimately because right now the Ravens are the team that we're competing most with for that number 1 seed. I don't know. That one's a super tough one to pick, but, we'll just go with it. We'll see what ends up happening then. It could go either way. Dolphins, I do think we're at home for this game against the Raiders. We'll be coming off our bye. Like I said, unquestionably, we should have Achane back in the lineup. But we should also, I would think, hopefully, but I think there is a good possibility of it happen that we'll also have Rob Hunt back. So we'll have our defense back at full strength, who's really coming on and looking to be elite towards the back half of the season. And then we'll have our offense basically, for the most part, back at full strength. Now, here's the thing, though. Rob Jones got injured in this past game, and it looks like that we haven't heard anything yet, so we'll see. But it looks now. Hopefully not. We'll see. I'm sure they're getting more tests and stuff done, but it looks like it could be a potentially season-ending injury. Hopefully not, but let's just say this. If not, and if he can come back at some point, my ideal lineup the rest of the way, offensive line-wise, would be Teron Armstead, Robert Jones, Connor Williams, Robert Hunt, and then Austin Jackson. If not, if he does miss any time at all, and potentially the rest of the season, then I guess it would just have to be Lester Cotton. Because I don't want it to be Eichenberg. It's probably not going to be Kendall Lamb. And I would just have to say Lester Cotton. So, Armstead, Cotton, Williams, Hunt, Jackson, right? So, anyway, and then we'll be getting Achane back in our running backs. And then we'll be at home for this game. The Raiders are, I know they just had a really good win this past week, but obviously they're blowing things up there. They still do have some players on that team, but I think we'll be able to handle this team. It's a game we should be favored at home. I think we take care of business. Obviously, though, and one thing I do want to make clear, though, at this point in the season, since I'm not going to change a lot of things up in this video to see, well, okay, if this plays out, then what happens and what do we got to do? I'll do that more so in the last 4 or 5 games because there's only going to be a handful of games left. Right now, there's too many games to do that with, so I'm just going to add a little caveat. The next 5 games that the Dolphins play, they should be favored in each one of those games, and they should be teams that the Dolphins should beat. Now, the Dolphins, the big narrative on the Dolphins this year is that we can't beat the good teams. Later down the stretch, we'll have an opportunity to dispel that yet again. There will be 3 straight games at the end of the season. But the next 5 games, the Dolphins should at least be able to do what they have done all season and beat the teams that they should beat. And if they do that, then they will be 11 wins going into that 3-game stretch at the end against good teams. So, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to assume that they take care of business against the teams that they should and beat the teams that they should. The Raiders are definitely one of those, especially since we'll be at home, coming off the bye. The team is going to be at as full strength personnel-wise on both sides of the ball as they possibly can be. And they will still have a top-rated offense even after this past game, and they will have a defense that is very much ascending. Okay, here I chose, let's just speed through some of these. I chose the Browns over the Steelers. You know, whatever, could go either way. I think the Jags will beat the Titans. I think the Bills will beat the Jets. I think the Texans will beat the Cardinals. This could go either way, so I chose Green Bay. I think it's more likely that the Vikings beat the Broncos. This one's tough and could definitely go either way, and they're both coming off their bye at that point with the Chiefs at home. But I really want the Chiefs to lose, and I'm hoping that they lose, and it's NFC versus AFC, and we're battling them for the number 1 seed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm choosing, and this, you know, the Eagles are a really good team. Now, let's also throw in another quick note, though, and something to keep an eye on for the rest of the season. Both the quarterbacks for these two teams, the Buffalo Bills and the Philadelphia Eagles, are both battling injuries. Josh Allen has a throwing shoulder injury that looked like it was definitely a thing a little bit in this past game that they played and lost against the Bengals. Thank you, Bengals. Last night on Sunday Night Football. Thank you. And Jalen Hurts is dealing with a knee injury. So that is going to be, now hopefully they, I never want injuries to anybody, even if they're division rivals, et cetera, et cetera. So hopefully these guys stay healthy, but it is something to keep an eye on, and that absolutely could be something that changes the entire landscape of things, right? Anyway, I chose Lions over Bears. I think that's how it will play out. I think Dallas over Carolina for sure. This one could go either way, but I gave it to the Commanders. I think the Niners will beat the Bucks, and I think Seattle will beat the Chargers. Okay, next week. God damn it, I just keep fucking... I keep doing that shit. All right, week 12, because I want to get through these a little bit, because there's not a lot to talk about. Like I said, for these next handful of games, it's mostly focused on the Dolphins, but as you can see, I mean, the Bengals should beat the Steelers. The Jags should beat the Texans. Browns should beat the Broncos. We should take care of business against the Jets. Chiefs should beat the Raiders, and Ravens should beat the Chargers. So I think these are all realistic options for how things will play out down the stretch. And, I mean, like I said, as you can see, the Dolphins, after everything, are the number 1. The Bengals are the number 2, but tied. We don't play the Bengals, so that's, so in this case, it looks like, oh, no. This doesn't show what our conference records are. But we obviously have the same conference record likely would come into play in that case, or then maybe the head-to-heads. But, I don't know how all that math works in this case. But anyway, with the 5th seed being the Ravens, the Browns being the 6th seed, so 3 coming out of that division. With the Chiefs being the 3 seed, interestingly enough, when it all shapes up after my predictions, for here and now. And then the Jags, the 4th seed. So interesting stuff there. But anyway, I think these are all relatively comfortable predictions. Okay, going here. This game could go either way, so, whatever. But I don't think that has much of an effect on our season. Colts over Bucks, okay. Tennessee over Panthers, whatever. This one would be important, more so for the division, but I think the Eagles are the better team, and I think they beat the Bills. Look, I think the Bills are going to have a problem down the season and down the stretch, and I think that there is a very real possibility that this could end up happening with the Bills being like 10-7, because the games that I picked them to lose in, ultimately I think they could lose in. Especially with their defense just getting more and more banged up. Anyway, Lions over Packers. Dallas over Commanders, Niners over Seahawks, Saints over Falcons, Rams over Cardinals, and Vikings over Bears for week 12. All right, let's move on to week 13. Now we have, let's see. Now we have, I think the Chargers will beat the Patriots. This one could go either way. Tennessee over Indy, whatever. I think the Texans will beat the Broncos. This one's tough, and this one definitely could go either way, but I chose Bengals here. I think we will take care of the Commanders. I think we will beat them. Especially, I am much less worried about the Commanders after they had their little fire sale at the trade deadline and got rid of both Montez Sweat and Chase Young. Getting rid of both of those top tier pass rushers does not make me worry about their defense almost at all at this point. Even though it is an away game for us and our offense does struggle a bit more on the road. I mean, look, we have beat teams on the road, including the Chargers in week 1, where we did put up, 36 points. So I think that we will be able to score against them, especially, knock on wood. Hopefully we remain healthy for the rest of the season and don't suffer any new injuries or any key injuries for sure. But our defense is coming on. I think we can handle Sam Howell in that offense, no problem. Like I said, I think that over this next 5-game stretch, both sides of the ball are going to get to pad the stats, if you will, to, really increase their statistics and their numbers during this next 5-game stretch to put both sides of the ball, offense and defense, in the top 10. Steelers over Cardinals. This one could go either way, but I'm going to take the Falcons over Jets. Browns over Rams. I do think that will happen. Chiefs over Packers. I think that's realistic. Dallas over Seattle. I think this one could go either, although that could go either way too. So let's be fair. This one could go either way, but I chose Tampa over Carolina. I think the Detroit Lions will beat the Saints. This one's tough too, and this one absolutely could go either way. But I chose the 49ers, so it just is what it is. Like I said, a lot of this stuff we're just going to ultimately end up having to see how it plays out, because you can't, again, so many, first of all, there's just too many games, and there's no way I can go through each and every one of these games that could potentially go to either team. Like, there's just too many scenarios to play out, so I'm not doing all that. We're going to have to some degree, just wait and see how it plays out. All right, I think the Steelers can and will beat the Patriots, especially with them being at home. I'll take the Jags over the Browns. This could go either way, especially with the Jets being at home, but I'll take the Texans over the Jets. I think the Bengals pretty comfortably will be able to beat the Colts. And here's another one. Like I said, sure, the Bills could beat the Chiefs, but the Chiefs are at home for this game. I don't really have a ton of confidence in the Bills. They will be coming off their bye week, though. They have a really late bye, which is kind of unfortunate for them because they are just getting decimated. They didn't lose anybody, I don't think. I don't recall in the last game, but they definitely were getting guys more banged up in this game that they played against the Bengals on Sunday night. But they're just too many injuries on the defense in particular, and their offense has been way too inconsistent. Josh Allen threw another interception in the game against the Bengals, right? And obviously they lost. I absolutely think they can and will lose to the Chiefs in Arrowhead. I'm taking the Chargers over the Broncos. We handle our business at home against the Tennessee Titans. I take the Ravens over the Rams and the Vikings over the Raiders. I did Falcons over Tampa, Lions over Bears, Saints over Carolina, Niners over Seahawks, Dallas over Eagles. I gave them the split because they obviously just lost to the Eagles in Philly. But it was a tough game, and came down to towards the end of it, down the stretch. I think the Dallas Cowboys can get that win over the Eagles at home. So I gave them the edge there, although it's possible the Eagles could get that win. Eagles end up at 14-3. Dallas ends up at 11-6. So the Eagles still end up winning their division at 14-3 after it's all said and done, with the Niners at 14-3. All right, anyway. And then I took Green Bay over the Giants. All right, let's move on. Next week, we are in what? Okay, we are now in week 15. I think it's pretty safe bet. Chargers over Raiders. Steelers over Colts, I think, is safe. We'll definitely handle our business at home against the Jets when they come down to South Florida. Yeah, I think I'll take the Texans over the Titans. This one's a tough game, and it could go either way, and that obviously could have pretty major implications. I mean, the way I have it, even with the Jags beating the Ravens here, and Jags are at home for this game, Jags are 13-4 with the 4th seed, and the Ravens are, they're 11-6 with the 5th seed behind the Bengals. So, but this game could go either way. Chiefs, I think, will take care of the Patriots. I don't think that's a worry. I went Browns over Bears, Lions over Broncos. I think that's safe. Bengals over Vikings. I think that's safe. And this is a tough one, and this could go either way. I think it's definitely possible that the Dallas Cowboys beat the Bills, but the Bills are at home, so I gave them an edge there. Even though they are the AFC team, I think this could go either way. So, on just from my personal tiebreakers, I could have chosen the Cowboys, but I gave it to the Bills here. And even still, though, but this kind of illustrates the point, though. I mean, you saw the past couple games that I have for the Bills. Those are very losable games, and the Bills are at 10-7. Now, down the stretch, they have some more winnable games. But anyway, we'll get to that. But this is one of them, the Cowboys, with them at home against the Cowboys. Let's see. I went Falcons over Carolina, Green Bay over Tampa, Saints over Giants. Niners, I think, is pretty safe over Arizona. This one could go either way. LA over Washington, Eagles over Seahawks. There we have it. Let's go to week 16. But again, part of the reason why I'm doing this is because I want you guys to actually see with all the games, even though, a lot of this is still very much up in the air and could go differently from my picks, including our games, right? You know what I'm saying? Including our games. And I think this is the week that, oh wait. Am I tripping? Oh, no, this is I'm sorry. It'll be the next week because this is the first game that we play. So this is now where we're getting into the stretch of games where we could potentially lose because we're playing against tough teams and good teams. Now, in my scenario, I have the Dallas Cowboys ending at 11-6. That would still be a winning team, obviously. They would be the 5th seed in the NFC, so they would make it to the playoffs, right? So it's a potential. But before we get to that, let's real quick. I chose Bengals over Steelers. Bills, I gave them the win over the Chargers, even though it's a home game for the Chargers, right? Browns over Texans. So you can see I'm trying to be as realistic as I possibly can in these picks. I chose Patriots over Broncos, but I could definitely see the Patriots losing. And I mean, the Patriots, that would only be their 3rd win of the season, so I was kind of nice to them. I think the Chiefs will take care of business at home against the Raiders. I chose Washington over Jets. I mean, it could go either way, especially with the Jets at home. But, you could see these 2 other teams I don't see to be much of a competition for us in the division. I chose Commanders over Jets, Falcons over Colts, Seattle over Tennessee. Jags, I think, should beat the Bucks. I did obviously choose us over the Cowboys. I do think we will take care of business at home, though. And I think this will be the first game in the season where the Dolphins will be able to finally dispel the narrative that we can't beat good teams. Now, it'll be fair to say that we still haven't beat a good team or a team with a winning record on the road, because we will be taking care of business at home, but I think we do take care of business, and I think this is a very realistic option for the Dolphins to come away with the win against the Cowboys at home. And I chose the 49ers over the Ravens. given this one could go either way, but I gave the Niners the edge, both because it's the NFC team versus the AFC team, also because we'll be battling potentially the number 1 seed against the Ravens, and we will have to play them the following week, and there could be potential head-to-heads there, but also because I do think that the Niners can win this game. So all of the tiebreakers, realistic and personal included, I gave it to the Niners. All right. And then Saints over Rams, Packers over Panthers, Lions over Vikings, Bears over Cardinals, and I think Philly should easily beat the Giants. So there you have that. Let's move on to week 17. All right. Now here is the week that is going to be, out of the last stretch of games, I think that the Dolphins will handle business. I'm pretty confident that the Dolphins will handle business at home against the Cowboys and the Bills, who come up in week 18. Okay? This one, though, I'm not confident about. Not right now. We'll have to see how the rest of the year plays out and how everything plays out. Till then, obviously, I chose the Dolphins, but it's a home game for Baltimore. It's in Baltimore. You see how it's been tough for our offense on the road, and in particular against good teams. They do have a good defense. They have a good offense. They're playing really well right now. Lamar Jackson, there's a lot of things. And this obviously, but for this week, this is the one game that I'm going to change up just to see how things play out. So if that happened, that would make the Ravens 12-5. Let's see. They would still be the 5th seed either way. The 5th seed either way. But 5th seed either way. But if we do lose to the Ravens and then beat the Bills the next week with everything else going the way I have it, that would make the Bengals the number 1 seed at 14-3. And so see, you can see tiebreakers will come into it then and give us the loss there, whereas we'll end up the 4th seed. So like I said, I mean, there are too many games and too many variables to switch up stuff this week, but that one game difference could end up costing us the number 1 seed. So one of the things that I will say in this video is that the next 5 games, the games that we should be favored in, the games that we should win, we absolutely have to win. And I hate to say that, must win. Every game is a must win, blobbity, 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 but it definitely is. They definitely are. Because if we want to have a chance for the number 1 seed, we ultimately have to take care of business in those games that we should be the winner in, that we're favored in, etc., etc. So it's crucial. We cannot lose any of those games for sure, because the last 3 games of the season are going to be really tough against winning teams, playoff caliber teams with good defenses, etc. 2 of those games, lucky for us, are at home against the Dallas Cowboys and the Buffalo Bills in week 18. But if we were to lose to the Baltimore Ravens in week 17, you can see it's a huge difference. It's a huge difference, because if we win that game, then we are the number 1 seed based off of, the rest of my somewhat arbitrary picks. Okay? But anyway, so for this week, I have the Browns over the Jets. I think that's actually safe. Colts over Raiders. Could go either way, but whatever. Again, this one could go either way. I just talked about that. I think the Bills will beat the Patriots, especially at home. So, again, another game that I think is winnable for them. Texans over the Titans. This one's tough and could go either way, but I gave it to the Bengals. Even though the Chiefs are at home, admittedly, maybe that's a little bit of a personal tiebreaker in there. I just would kind of like them to beat the Chiefs. Although, again, look, okay, so let's say the Chiefs, though, win and the Ravens win. So let's say actually the 2 home teams in that case win. The Chiefs would then be the number 1 seed at 14-3, and the Dolphins would be the number 3 seed at 13-4, with the Bengals the number 4 seed at 13-4, and the Ravens the 5th seed at 12-5. So those will be a couple of change-ups that I'll do just to kind of see how it could play out. I don't think anything else is worth doing at this point in the season, but I'm going to put it back Dolphins, and then Bengals. Because again, I hope that this is very much how I hope things play out. A lot of these picks definitely came down to how I hope it plays out, right? With the Dolphins and their picks, with the exception of this game against the Ravens, though, believe me when I say, and believe me when I say, I think we could win the rest of our games. I absolutely think it's possible that we can make it 14-3. This is the only game, though, against the Ravens that I'm not super confident. I'm like ultra confident in the next 5 games. I'm relatively confident against the Cowboys and the Bills. I'm on the fence as of right now against the Ravens. Okay. And then I chose Jags over Panthers. I think that's safe. Steelers over Seattle, although that could go either way. This is a tough game that could go either way, but I ultimately chose the Lions over the Cowboys. Eagles, I think that's a safe bet over the Cardinals. Rams over Giants. Niners over Washington. I think that's safe. Saints over Bucks. Falcons over Bears. And then Vikings over Green Bay. All right, now let's get to the last game of the season, the regular season, that is. Week number 18. I chose Jets over Patriots because I do think that they are actually the better team overall, even though I don't think that, or even though the Patriots are at home for that game, whatever. And as you can see, I don't think that Rodgers coming back is going to matter because they're not even going to make the playoffs at 5-12. Now, who knows? I mean, they are spunky and they have a really good defense. It's just their offense is so bad that I just don't have any faith in their offense whatsoever. But that is part of what gives me optimism, even for the game that we play in New York against them, because their offense is just so bad. And I think our defense will be able to handle them no problem in both games. And I think our offense will be able to score points in both games. Anyway, back to it. Like I said, I have the Dolphins beating the Bills at home. Obviously, we're at home. I have the Ravens over the Steelers, the Bengals over the Browns, the Colts over the Texans, the Jags over the Titans, the Chiefs over the Chargers, the Raiders over the Broncos. I think those are all relatively safe bets. Yeah, I think those are all relatively safe bets. Anyway, and then I have, let's see, what do I have for the other side? I have Tampa over Carolina, Dallas over Washington, Eagles over Giants, I think is safe. Lions over Vikings, Packers over Bears, Saints over Falcons, Seahawks over Cardinals, and Niners over Rams. Okay, so as you can see, that these are my picks. Again, some of it's arbitrary, a lot of it's up in the air. But as you can see, there is absolutely 100% a path for the Miami Dolphins to still get the number 1 seed, even though we lost to the Kansas City Chiefs yesterday. Now, just really quick, just for fun, let's take a look at the wild card round. If this were to play out, the Dolphins wouldn't be playing in the wild card round because we would have a first round bye, which is what we hope for, which is what we want. Now, let's see. How would I pick these games? I mean, it's tough, and now we're at the point of the season where it's all the best teams. You know what? I'm going to give Baltimore the upset here, though. I'm going to give Baltimore the upset here. They're 1 seed difference, but I think that they're the better team overall. I'll take KC being the home team, and then we'll take Bengals over the Bills. Especially at home, because if they're the home team again, I don't think the Bills, maybe the Bills over the Bengals if the Bills were playing at home, but no. We'll take Cowboys over Saints. We'll take Eagles over the 6th seed Falcons, and then we'll take the Niners, which is good because I want these teams, hold on, which is good though because I want this team and I want this team to remain in the playoffs for when we get there. Okay? So again, a little bit of this is going to be how I want it to play out, but let's continue because part of this is supposed to be fun, right? Part of this video is supposed to be optimism and hope, and part of it is supposed to be fun. All right, this is interesting though. Let's see how this plays out. So The Chiefs and the Bengals. Ooh. I'm going to take the Bengals in this because, one, the Bengals are at home. Okay. I think they have relatively equal quarterbacks. I think maybe you could take the Chiefs defense, but I would take the Bengals offense. So Bengals offense, Chiefs defense, so that's 1-1. Equal quarterback, so that's a tie. But then at home for the Bengals, I'm taking Bengals, baby. Taking Bengals in that situation. I am taking Bengals in. But you know what, though? For this exercise, I'm going to give it to the Chiefs because I want the Chiefs to still be there. I want the Chiefs to still be there. So I'm going to give the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes the upset. Even though I do actually think in this scenario, I do think the Bengals would win. But like I said, I want the Chiefs to be there, so I'm going to give them the win. And then I'm going to give the Dolphins the win. I do think this is realistic, though. I think that especially being at home, but this is part of why home field advantage is going to be super fucking important. Because the difference in this game versus us having to play at home versus having to play in Baltimore is huge. Now, obviously, if things ended up different, and we weren't the number one seed, who knows how the seeding would play out, and then who knows if we would even ultimately play Baltimore at all. So who knows if we ended up having to go to Baltimore, in that scenario, we just don't know. But I would unquestionably rather play the Ravens at home because even, like I said, in week 17, playing against the Ravens, that would be a fantastic rematch, though. It would be a fantastic rematch. Anyway, like I said, I want these two teams again. So, but let's see. Man, this is tough. But I want the Eagles. I want the Eagles still there. So I'm going to take them over the upset, and I'll take the Lions over the Cowboys. So we got some upsets in there, but this is fun. We're having fun. Okay. Now these last two games of the season, though, are why I want the Chiefs and the fucking Eagles to still be there. And this is part of the hope that I'm selling you. Okay? So I get it. The narrative for the Dolphins is that we can't beat good teams. We'll have opportunities at the end of the season to beat good teams. And if we can come away with a win against the Cowboys and the Bills at home, those will be two good teams. And then if we can beat the Ravens on the road, then we can say we've beaten three good teams in the regular season, all with playoff caliber, all winning seasons, some of them at the top of their division, etc., etc. And one of those games will have been on the road. We will have them be able to say that, and we will stand a really good chance of getting the number one seed and home field advantage with a first round bye. But the reason why I have the Chiefs and the Eagles still here, and why I'm going to choose the Eagles over the Lions and give the Eagles the upset over the Lions, I'm going to choose the Dolphins here, is because then these will be revenge games. We lost to the Chiefs this past week, but there is a scenario in which we could play them in the AFC Championship game. Now, there is also a scenario in which we could play them in the AFC Championship game with it being at Arrowhead. But I'm just telling you, there is a chance we could play them again, and we could get the win. Now, technically, we would be the home team in this, even though it's in Vegas, so neither team is the home team, but it's at least not a cold weather place. It's at least not some place with cold weather and, elements that could potentially affect the game. But then we could have a rematch against the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl, and we could get revenge on two of the top teams that beat us early in the season that gave us the narrative that we couldn't beat good teams. Even though obviously we will have a chance to dispel that narrative at the end of the season anyway, even before any of this could potentially play out. All right. Woo! All righty. So that ended up being a little bit of a lengthy video. I kind of expected that. I mean, one, I talk a lot to begin with, but there are still a lot of games. Imagine though, if I did go through all the various different scenarios of how any of those close or, up in the air games could go, we'd be here all day. But I just wanted to make a video, like I said, that kind of gives you an idea, and not just talking about it, but I wanted to give you guys a visual as well, and also see that I tried to be as realistic in my picks as I possibly could. I very well could see the games that I chose playing out the way they did. I think that it's very realistic. And so Dolphins fans need to just take a breath. We're at the midway point of the season. The defense is really starting to come on, really starting to look like they're going to be an elite unit, especially in the back end, and look like a top 10 unit for sure, I would say, by the end of the season. The offense has been there all year. They're going to have a handful of games coming up where they can pad their stats and remain that, right? They're going to have more opportunities against tough teams. 2 out of 3 of those are going to be at home, right? So look, just take a breath. This is not, I know a lot of people are saying that this is same old Dolphins because we lost to the Chiefs and we did it, kind of shooting ourselves in the foot and, had a stupid fumble at the end of the game and blah, blah, blah. I get that. But this is not the same old Dolphins, at least not yet. And this is coming from me. And if you guys know me, and if you guys have watched my channel, you know that I am one of the most heavily criticizers of this Dolphins team over the past handful of years, particularly prior to the Mike McDaniel era. So, you know that I'm the guy. I mean, I got a reputation as being negative because I gave what I thought to be the cold, hard, honest truth about this team, most of which turned out to be correct, especially everything that I had to say about Brian Flores. So, and especially things like how he was sabotaging Tua's career. He unquestionably was tanking in his first season. I mean, all of these things, people can try and push back, but I think at this point there is enough evidence to prove all of those things that I said correct. Anywho, we can absolutely still get what we want, and this is not the same Dolphins team. It is very realistic that we end up 14-3 at the end of the season with a first round bye and home field advantage throughout the playoffs. So keep your heads up, Dolphins fans. I am going to get out of here. I'm going to get this video over and done with so I can put it together and upload it for you guys, and so you guys can watch it. Keep your heads up. This is not the end. We will definitely still be able to make it to where we want, especially as we get healthy at this midpoint of the season. Look, still, the sky's the limit. Keep your heads up. All right. Let's get out of here. We have a week to I know it sucks because for the next 2 weeks, we're going to have to just deal with a loss against the Kansas City Chiefs. But that's part of the reason why I wanted to make this video now. So you guys, for whoever watches this, I mean, my videos don't get very many views and stuff, so it's not going to make it very far, I would imagine. But hopefully this can be something that whoever watches it, it can be a little bit of a, perspective that things are still okay and we can absolutely achieve our goals, which means getting to and winning the Super Bowl. So don't freak out. It sucks that we have to be on a loss for 2 weeks, but everything is fine. All right. I'm not going to keep repeating myself even more. I have nothing else to say, so I'm going to get out of here. Fins up, guys. Keep your heads up. Things are still good. And here's to a 14-3 season with the #1 seed, baby. Let's go.
7 seconds left. Tannehill will throw it. And this will end it after the shuttle. South Florida. The Dolphins have done it. They keep their season alive. 69 yards. Wow. Pure joy. Miami wins it.